This is Got the Fix-It Guide. Today we have a Bosch washing machine that won't spin, so we're going to be changing these motor brushes. This is very common for Bosch washers at about the 5th or 6th year. These brushes wear out, they get too small, and they can't send power to the motor. Here's one I pulled out of the machine, so it's pretty tiny. It should be about twice this long. So this is the machine now with the new brushes in, with the spin cycle. And it's doing great. It's picking up speed, going faster and faster. So we're going to go over how to do this procedure. It's not that hard. Just want to be patient. First thing, this is a stacked one. It has a dryer on top. So I'm just removing the washer and dryer away from the wall, so it'll give me a little room to work. I took out the drain tube, took off the vent tube from the dryer, and I just got to get to this back panel. Here's the model number for this Bosch washing machine, pretty common one. Most all Bosch washing machines, though, you can do this procedure if you're noticing that it has a weak spin, it's barely spinning or not spinning at all. So we're taking out all these perimeter screws, and we're going to lift up on the back panel to remove it. It's got the more screws here at the bottom. These are Torx 15, I think, or Torx 20. I think it's Torx 15. So we're going to get the back panel off, and we're going to take the belt off, and then we're going to remove the motor so we can do the install of the brushes. To remove the belt, you just turn the pulley towards your left. As you pull on the belt, it'll come right off. And we're going to take the ground connector off of the motor. And then we have two 10mm bolts that we're going to remove, and that's going to let the motor drop out of position. You can also remove the electrical connector from behind the motor, but it's a little bit easier to get off if you get the motor dislodged from the tub first. So we're using the 10mm wrench, and we're spinning off these two bolts in the front. And then you just have to pull the motor towards you by about ½ an inch, and then it'll let go of the four positions that are holding, or four connectors that are holding it in position. So we're spinning those off, sped up the camera here a little bit. And I'm using a standard head screwdriver to pry the motor toward me by about ½ inch, so it'll let go. This one was on there pretty tight. So there's the motor, came loose. I'm going to turn it away from me to expose the modular connector, the electrical connector. And you can usually pull this off with your fingers. This one was on pretty tight, so I'm gently pulling with a pair of pliers on each corner until it lets go. I've already removed the green ground connector. This is just a spade connector. And now I can get the motor out from underneath. I would advise you at this point to get the motor up, maybe on a table, so it's close to where you are. Sit down at the table so you can see and have a real bright light, so it makes this a lot easier. I'm going to use a pair of pliers to pull back on the spade connector that hooked to the brush. And then I'm going to make the old brush let go by pushing it to my left, and then lifting it up just about 1/16 of an inch, and then pulling it to my right. And then it's going to let go, and I can pull out the spring, and there's the old brush made of carbon. These are called carbon motor brushes. Here's the part number. A lot of stores sell these online. Here's the model number again for the washing machine. And with the new brush, you can see it's a lot longer. I need to make sure I put it in to the slot correctly, facing the right direction, because it's got a chamfered end, and I got to make sure I put it in right. So I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to put it in here so that it matches how the old one came out. And this is the part that's a little tricky, because you have to feed this big long spring down into the brass tube. And just be patient, take your time. It'll spring out on you sometimes when you don't expect it, but just restart, Might take a few tries. I would advise again that you have a real bright light and you have it close to your face so that you can see easier. And you want to have a standard head screwdriver with you or something that you can use to help push the spring down into the brass case. Using your fingers is okay, but it's kind of a tight working space. So using like a small standard head screwdriver is good to help push those parts of the spring down in there. Once you get the spring all the way in, then you can push the, we call it a spade because it looks like a spade shovel. You can push it to the left down into a slot, and then you can push the right side down and then pull to your right. It'll lock it into position. It's a pretty clever way to install these. So again, this just takes some patience. You may want to try it a few times. You may find that the spring kind of gets caught up on the rim of the brass tube, and you have to just push that spring up and push it back into the tube. Once you do this, you probably have anywhere between 4 to 7 years of really strong spin before you'd have to do this again. Try not to be disappointed if it pops out all of a sudden on you. Just restart. Take your time. Just push down one coil of the spring at a time. When I've done this in the past, I've tried to do it in the daytime where I take this outside in the bright sunlight and then have it, again, if possible, about 1 foot from my eyes so I can really see well. And then it makes it a lot easier. Alright, we're going to push it to the left first, and we'll push it down on the right side and then pull to the right, and that'll lock it in. And then I'm going to push behind it as I put the spade electrical connector back on. I want to make sure that electrical connector is really on there as far as it'll go. There we go, and then we'll flip the motor over and we're going to do the other side since we have 2 of these. Second side might go easier because you've got a little experience now. It'll be somewhat easier to do. So again, we're going to pull off the electrical connector. Just kind of wiggle it off, and then we'll push to the left, and then we'll lift up on the right side and then pull to our right. It'll come right out. We got the new one, which again is at least twice as long. And then we're going to check its orientation, making sure that that's going to go in the correct angle. Just copy what you see on the video will work great. Push that down, and we're going to do the same procedure. So I've got the spring all the way in, and now I'm going to do it like I did before. I'm going to push it down into the slot on the left, and then I'll push down the right side down into the groove, and then I'll pull to the right to lock it in. Push behind it with my standard head screwdriver. I'm going to put the spade connector back on to give it power. Make sure that goes on all the way and it kind of clicks into position. And you're essentially done. Now we just got to get that motor back into position. So we're going to slip it in underneath, and then we're going to lift up the back of it. We'll go in. I got the electrical connector back in first, and then the spade connector, and now I'll go ahead and lift it up onto the tub. I'll put the back part first, up onto the plastic lugs. Then I get the front part locked into the front lugs, and then I'll put in the two 10mm bolts. There we go, just tightening the last one, and now we'll put the belt back on. Back panel back on. Here it is doing its spin. So that worked great, and this machine will do well for at least 4 more years now. So thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe when you get a chance. Thanks a lot.